Right. Welcome, everyone. I believe that we are live streaming now on YouTube. Today is May 11th, 2022. And this is the Complete Streets Advisory Council. Welcome, everyone. My name is Emily Flynn. I'm the Director of Health and Wellness for the City of Kingston. I hear a bit of an echo, but I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to read the full document here, but I just want to remind everyone that the city still has the right to eject anyone for behaving inappropriately, all of that kind of language that we started during COVID. And other than that, then I'm going to pass it off to Bob, unless you'd like me to read through the agenda or anything like that. Where would you like to go?
Nope, yeah. we can dive right in. What I want to do first is to go around because there are people here that are new, people here that are expecting to or hopeful of joining us, which would be great. And just so everybody can introduce themselves and kind of tell just a short, why do you care about this? I'm Bob Dennison. I'm the chair of the Complete Streets Advisory Council in the city of Kingston. And I've been on it for a number of years. I'm a retired civil engineer, a transportation engineer. How about John?
John Gross-Poland, I'm the vice chair of this committee, and I'm a veteran long distance bicyclist and longtime cycling advocate, and heavily involved in building out the rail trail network in the county. And I'm retired now, you can probably tell.
Great, I think you look great. Claudette. Oh, you have to unmute. There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Hi, I am a retired public works director. I was public works director in New Haven, Connecticut, Oakland, California, and Berkeley, California. I am also the former chair of Resource Center for Accessible Living, which is our independent living center. I am low vision, so proper transportation, pedestrian access, accessibility has always been something that I was passionately concerned about while I was an active public works director, and definitely more concerned about now that I am part of the disabled community.
And she can't keep herself out of the transportation world.
No, because when you were a public works director, you spent a lot of time in transportation.
Brian.
Which we're all grateful for, by the way. I should add, Claudette. Hi, everyone. Brian Slack, Principal Transportation Planner for the Ulster County Transportation Council.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to have to interrupt for a second and say my guy is here and he needs to chainsaw something. So I'm going to put myself on mute and I should be back in about 15 minutes. We'll talk to you then. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Brian.
That's okay. Principal Transportation Planner for the Ulster County Transportation Council, as well as the Ulster County Traffic Safety Coordinator.
We have others attending who are not members or are not members yet. Why don't we go around and talk to them? Paul, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Paul Stankus. I'm a relatively new resident in Kingston. I work in financial crime compliance right now, but I've never sort of worked in the public sphere like some of you, but I'm very interested in what kind of makes a city work, and having recently moved to the area, I'm interested in doing what we can to help improve the street usage by everybody, cars, bikes, people, and anybody else who's using it. I live in the Rondout, and just walking around, I see the challenges that the city faces, and I'm excited to work with you all to hopefully make it more accessible by all the citizens who live here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, thanks. We can go to our esteemed city engineer, John Schultz.
Hey everyone. Hey everyone, John Schultz, city engineer. I've been in this position about 3.5 years now, and I know Emily's going to ask me later for updates, so My office generally manages the larger construction projects in the city. So look forward to hearing more from you guys.
We also know him as Greg's boss. You remember Greg, right?
Yes, remember, Greg.
Helen, you want to introduce yourself? Helen Atkinson?
Hi, I'm Helen Atkinson. I'm here as liaison for the Conservation Advisory Council. We just met last night and a number of issues came up that I'm eager to hear about. And I've been living in Kingston since 2013.
Okay, well, welcome. Kristen Kessler.
Hi all. I am a little under the weather today, so I'm going to keep my camera off, but I did just put up a photo of me on a bike when I went to Burlington, Burlington, Vermont, so I thought that would be appropriate for this call. I am one of the project managers for the Department of Health and Wellness for the City of Kingston. I was hired back in December primarily to oversee a New York State Department of Health grant called Creating Healthy Schools and Communities. And I mention this because one of the main strategies of the grant, besides nutrition, is increasing access, safety, desirability to essentially active transportation. So working with to make the City of Kingston more friendly towards cyclists and pedestrians, so that neatly aligns with the objectives of complete streets. My background is actually in nutrition. I'm a registered dietitian, but since December, I feel like I have dived very deep into the world of transportation. And I thank everybody who has been very educational and patient with me as I learn a lot about that, because it will be a large portion of the grant that I oversee for the next 4 years. I also live in Woodstock. So as luck would have it, I joined the Woodstock Complete Streets Committee last summer and got involved in work there. And then I got the job in Kingston in December. And I love Kingston to my core. I would move to Kingston if I could, but my husband insists on living in the woods, which Woodstock provides a little bit more of that remote vibe that he's looking for. But I'm just really excited to do this work in Kingston. Thanks, Gil.
Welcome, great. I was just in Burlington actually, and they have a fabulous sidewalk system and bike system. Their sidewalk system is quite impressive.
It's those socialists.
That's right. That's why.
Mayor Sanders.
Yep.
Got that guy.
I have to say that photo of me is when we were there for our anniversary and we found out that they had this huge long greenway, this bikeway that was completely, disconnected from the cars. It was beautiful. And so we randomly just rented bikes and we went out on like a 20-mile bike ride just one day, and it was the most glorious thing. So that serves as one of my inspirations.
Yep, goes up to St. Alban. It's an impressive feat. Okay, is there anybody public comment? Does anybody want to make a public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll jump right into old business. And the first piece of old business on the agenda is the update on the proposed Kingston City Sidewalk Improvement District, which we've been kicking around for a couple of 3 years. And the next piece is the political lift to get the Common Council to think about it. And we haven't dived into that. We've been consulting with the mayor, but I did ask Emily to see what the mayor's thinking about it now, if anything.
I don't have much of an update. My understanding of it is that this is sort of basically on pause right now. So the timeline is not good for election cycles right now. My understanding is that the last step that had been taken was working with the Corporation Council to do that timeline, because it would include a referendum, is my understanding.
Yes,
and so we also now have a new Corporation Council. I'm not sure if she has been brought up to speed on this yet. So I think we could say that this project is sort of on pause officially. I also, in my world, I sort of had it in my head that the bike head master plan, which I'll speak to later on the agenda, might inform the creation if we went forward with a sidewalk district. And so one sort of, to me, seemed like a first step that might lead to a second step of a sidewalk improvement district. That's pretty much all I've got. I could try to answer questions, but I don't have a whole lot more than that.
So I think you're absolutely right. And we're kind of, and I don't want to call it a backdooring it, but we're kind of the bike pedestrian plan that's under your that is the next item on the agenda, and under your leadership is includes in it the Americans with Disabilities plan, which is we're required to have a plan to bring the city into conformity with the Americans with Disability Act. And the first step in that is happening under this plan, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I believe, in fact, when we talked to the consultant recently, they specifically said that, yes, they are producing an ADA compliance plan. So that will go forward anyway, and that will inform this district and will help highlight the need to address our sidewalks. But
if I could, Bob, there was one article that I circulated, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago that was relevant to the subject, and it indicated the possibility of utilizing a real estate transfer fee as a mechanism to fund sidewalks. And that, I think, is the real sticky wicket with this proposal that we've created, is it adds a new fee to homeowners in the city, which I think everyone is very weary about for a variety of reasons. And the real estate transfer tax, I think, opens up a really interesting avenue for the topic, because while it is an additional fee for homeowners, it's a one-time fee for new homeowners, which is a little more palatable, I think, particularly for existing homeowners who already feel like they're paying enough in taxes. So maybe we could consider that for a future discussion as this topic continues to be on our agenda.
If I could add to that, when I was in Berkeley, we added a real estate transfer fee similar to that, but it had to do with overflow and sewer issues that was triggered when you did real estate transfer or certain home improvements at a dollar valuation. It's an interesting way of getting around that particular topic. There can be some pushback, usually from the real estate community itself. Realtors are not always happy about that. And of course, sometimes depending on how it has to be implemented, but it is something to think about.
Given that it is on pause, that does give us a chance to kind of revisit it, which we would have to do anyway, because it's been on pause for too long to just go as it is. And I think when we revisit it, we should talk about that and open up the opportunity for other funding sources instead of the district, or as well as the district, or, I think it's a good thing to revisit. So I'll write that down. Let's do that. And on that note, Emily, how's your study going with pedestrian bike vehicle safety? No, I'm sorry, that's later. This is the education program, which is also you.
Do you want to switch it up? Want to do bike
Let's
peds?
switch it up.
Sort of, yeah.
As long as we're on topic, let's switch it up. So we're going to switch B and D.
So I'm sort of thinking in my mind where I should start. So let me do a little bit of an intro. So the Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan is a planning document for the city of Kingston to improve walkability, bikeability, all users throughout the city of Kingston. We have we've gotten a grant from the state DEC to fund half of it. Half of the match was staff time. We've gone into contract with a consultant, Barton and LaJudas, that is helping us develop this plan. We have just completed the public outreach phase. So we just closed up. We had multiple ways of public outreach, but the two main ones was a survey that was on Engage Kingston and also in paper forms, English and Spanish, in different locations around the city, and also a mapping application where people could go on and drop pins to show different walking and biking concerns. People could post positive things, but I think mostly it was concerns that were added to the database. So we just closed up those two main tools. And now all of that content gets given to the consultants. Basically, we've done all of our needs assessment. So we've collected, along with that, data about where we have sidewalks, the accessibility of sidewalks. We also captured in the data collection the materials of sidewalks. We realized sort of bubbling up in this work was wanting to know where we had bluestone, for example. So we did collect that data in the assessment. So we collected, the consultants also collected some data about certain intersections safety. So public outreach, needs assessment, data collection was all sort of combined together. We've given that to the consultants. They're going to take all that information and give us recommendations. So that's the part of the plan that has not been written yet. So I sort of feel like more than halfway done with the project. They take this information over the next couple of months, and they're going to come back to us with a draft plan, I think late summer, which will go to the Public Advisory Committee for feedback first. Then we'll bring that out to the public with a public meeting and ask for feedback from the Common Council, the public, and everyone. So our timeline is sort of hoping to have a draft plan around late August, bring it to Common Council and the public early fall. What I didn't say in there, because I'm trying to go through it chronological order, is that we did get a draft with all of this needs assessment that's been given to the Public Advisory Committee for review, just that part of the plan. So that's a step in there that I missed in explaining it. Any questions if I wasn't clear in my explanation of all that? So basically the plan is moving along and we're going into a new phase with it. Any questions?
Good, thank you, Emily. And in fact, I'm on the Citizens Advisory Committee, so I'll be looking at that anxiously, the data stuff as we move forward. Great, thank you. Brian, update on the Highway Safety Board. Any movement on our governor's Highway Safety Board?
The Ulster County Traffic Safety Board has been meeting on a monthly basis since January. If you go to Ulster County Traffic Safety Board, if you just Google that, as hosted on the Ulster County website, you can find a little bit of information. Primarily meeting agendas and minutes are provided up there. We had to cancel the May meeting, but we will have a meeting in June. And the meetings have been very good. I think we've reinvigorated the board from what it previously was prior to COVID. And we've had some very good discussions at the meetings on a variety of topics, including safe streets initiatives at the New York State Legislature, data analysis of crash data, and a variety of other topics, which we'll continue to explore at future meetings. We have one vacancy that should be filled, I think, in the next several legislative cycles. And the good news regarding our membership, the board consists of 12 members. 4 of those members are now what I would consider to be members of the cycling community, whereas previously almost all appointed members were law enforcement only. For whatever reason, this was always a very law enforcement centered board. And with the direction of the Ulster County Executive, we've moved to try to diversify that as well, and with the support of the legislature. So, I mean, the board's purpose is study, advocacy, and public education toward traffic safety. That's really its primary function. So it is a good avenue or outlet to discuss traffic safety issues, including complete streets. And we want to continue to improve those meetings and those discussions. It is regularly attended by our New York State DOT resident engineer, David Corrigan, our Commissioner of Public Works at the county level, Brendan Masterson, obviously myself and Dennis Doyle from the Planning Department, and a variety of other, including Chief Tinty from the City of Kingston, and a variety of other law enforcement officials and advocates. So I'd encourage people to attend there on the first Monday of every month at 6 p.m. We're holding hybrid in-person and remote meetings, so you can log on and view those meetings the same way the public can view these. We do a panelist setup with the meetings, and they're held in the Ulster County Legislative Chambers if you choose to participate in person.
Thank you. That's huge to change, in my view. It's huge to change the focus from the Traffic Safety Board from the police, who've always used it as kind of a separate pot of money that they can fool around with, and introduce into it complete streets and engineering and traffic stuff. I mean, there's there's money there occasionally, and it needn't always be spent on police overtime, I guess is what I would say.
Right, right.
It's good that there's a broader, group of people that'll be making that decision.
The Governor's Traffic Safety Committee, which is our state parent organization, did just complete its 2022 grant cycle. The majority of those grants applications coming from within Ulster County do have to go through an approval process through the committee. We always approve them. The majority of them are through police departments, what they're applying for, enhanced enforcement, that sort of thing, child seat checking. But a big component of that grant has also gone out to the Ulster County Community College, to Rose Quinn, who's been our safety coordinator for many years. Rose is stepping down from that position, but fortunately we have Tom Polk, who is stepping in to partially fill that void in cooperation with some individuals from the college. So Tom has developed a very dynamic proposal to do bicycle education, awareness, and training in not just Kingston, but elsewhere in Ulster County. So we hope that grant is successful. And I really want to encourage finding additional grant funding for education outreach, particularly trying to add good money to the efforts that we're making here in the city of Kingston toward an outreach campaign. So I agree completely, and we'll continue to look for ways to utilize those funds.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Brian.
Yep.
How about the pedestrian? This is now the pedestrian bike master plan. Oh,
Yeah, I'm calling it the Transportation Education Campaign. It's been called the Traffic Education Campaign. It's been called a couple of different things. We might now start to be calling it the campaign name that the consultant has come up. So, so let me back up a little bit and say that so the city recognized a need for transportation education in our city, unfortunately, especially because of the 3 bicyclist deaths that have happened. So the Common Council passed a resolution for $45,000, which included a few specifics, like, for example, they wanted a direct mailer, for example. So we've now gone into contract with a consultant, Nikki Jones Agency, and we have clarified the deliverables that they were going to provide us. And I'm pretty happy to say I can even give you guys a bit of a preview. I don't think anyone else is going to get this. We're looking to kick off the campaign mid-June is the date that we're looking at right now. And I can give you a bit of a sneak preview. So if you all can see this, the theme we're going through with is called Be a Road Hero. This is going to be applied to social media materials. We're going to do some quick yard signs that'll go up on Broadway immediately, just to try to get some words and visuals out as soon as possible. We're doing 3 15-second videos. We're going to be shooting that, I think, in early June. And they're going to have a fast turnaround for that work. We're going to be doing a direct mailer. What else are we going to be doing? A couple press releases and maybe a few other materials. But the bonus for this work is that they're going to be giving us all of the elements to this marketing campaign. I have a previous background in marketing and communications, so I have the ability to resize these things. So I'm pretty excited that now that we will soon have a foundation of a marketing campaign, when we in the future identify additional communications that we want to say, for example, recently at the Walk Bike Conference Symposium, we were talking a lot about e-scooters and e-bikes. So if that becomes a messaging that the Complete Streets or Ulster County decide that we want to put out there, we can use this campaign with some additional verbiage. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen There was a little bit of a preview of it, so more to come around mid-June. Hopefully you'll be seeing a lot of that image. Any
Great.
questions about that project?
It's great that it's scalable. I think that's a great idea.
Wonderful.
Yeah. You know, e-bikes and e-scooters may raise their, you know, we did make a recommendation, which really hasn't gone anywhere. And I guess because a vendor hasn't really pushed on it. You know, e-bikes and e-scooters are here. State legislation permits them. Unless it's a shared or rented system, the city is kind of out of the deal unless, you know, they can choose to do that or not, but they have to act on that. The rest of it is just going to happen by accident, I guess, so I think an education program might be really useful as they expand. I mean, there's a lot of them out there right now, but as more of them appear.
And let me clarify. So this current education campaign does not include e-scooters or e-bikes. So that was not part of the goal of this campaign, but I was using it as an example. This is something we could do in the future.
Oh, it's good. I agree. And I knew that. And I'm just saying it's scalable to e-bikes and e-scooters when they become our next problem. If you want to give us any updates on projects, I guess that goes to John.
Hey, yeah, I can discuss a few projects that are finishing construction and then what we're going to be working on this year. So in the category of projects nearly done but not quite but soon are the Broadway streetscape and the Broadway at Grand intersection, which I know everyone is anxious. I'm also anxious that those finished signals with the video detection be installed, but in case you haven't heard, there are supply chain issues that have affected those very severely, and things that used to be gotten in a matter of days or weeks are now taking many months. That being said, I think we're near the end of that waiting period. We're being told June of this year now for all of those components. So, you know, we wish it was sooner, but that's what we were able to work out. So we also, in case you ever have travel on Elmendorf Street, you know, the bridge has been closed there for almost 2 years now. We expect to open that bridge on by Memorial Day, so end of this month. In terms of upcoming projects going to construction this year, I have 3 definites in them, and those are Franklin Street, Henry Street streetscapes, Wilbur Avenue repaving, definitely going to construction. We're also doing a parking lot project, but it does have the component that it's going to extend Fashion Lane from its current terminus through to Cornell Street. So that's going to be have a small street and traffic control component to it. So those are the major projects that we're, you know, getting out to construction. Obviously, we still have a number of things still in the design stage. The big ones being the safe and accessible Flatbush Foxhall project, and the work that would be on Clinton and Schwenk, what we're calling DRI, Uptown Transportation Improvements. So those are the major, you know, roadway type projects that my office is working on.
That's a lot of work. You guys have done a great job with a bunch of these jobs. You really, they're sensitive, and you've done a good job with them. The city is looking better for it. So
if I could point out one other thing that is not a city project, but that the city managed to get done at no cost. That's if you've seen the new sidewalks on West O'Reilly Street between Broadway and Mary's Avenue, only on one side. However, if you have not yet been out there, I'd encourage you to take a look because aside from Broadway, West O'Reilly now, that one side anyway, has the most ADA compliant sidewalks to be found anywhere in the city. And it's sort of a sneak preview of what's to come. And it's also a very stark difference. If you walk one side and then the other, you would see, kind of how different an ADA compliant sidewalk is from what exists in most of the city.
Right. We can use that as an example. I think that's good to know that,
Yeah, I anticipate, if you get a chance to walk it, I think it would be instructive.
Tom, can you say where that is again exactly? I didn't catch it.
West O'Reilly Street between Broadway and Mary's Avenue in Midtown.
Great, thank you.
Who paid for it?
Central Hudson.
Yeah.
So they had to install new electrical duct bank that serves the hospital, and the only place to put it was directly under the sidewalk. So their project removed the sidewalk, and then we worked with them for putting back the sidewalk in a modern and compliant manner.
So they can bury cables when they want to. That's good to know.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that project, even though it was done without any cost to the city, I won't say it's without any headaches to the city, because it's as we get into Franklin and Henry, we're going to be doing a type of project that the city has historically not done before. And the impacts to residential properties and perceived property that people have historically occupied in the city right away is going to be substantial. So that's sort of the next frontier, is pushing up against, these are very limited, and you'll see some examples, even if you walk West O'Reilly, of compromises that had to be made. In this case, we didn't compromise the ADA accessibility, but I've got at least two people there unhappy with me because we changed their driveway grades. So
right, that's
where we're at.
Yeah, and that's always. I went down there for years with people who have intrusions into the public right of way, and they think it's theirs, and But I think the O'Reilly credit, despite the fact that you didn't pay for it, the fact that it was done to your standards and our criteria is something that we need to take note of. This is what the standards are in the city, and that's what they, and that's good. That's a good thing. But yeah, intrusions in property owners is always a challenge.
Yep.
Okay, new business. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. This kind of goes together. I think A and B go together now as a part of what I'm thinking about them. I saw that the Common Council, at the request of Rose Quinn, endorsed the proposed, what they call, I guess they're calling it Crash Victims' Rights and Safety Act, which is three or four proposed laws. One has to do with avoiding bicycles by a certain amount of distance. Another one has to do with allowing municipalities to lower their speed limits to 25 miles an hour if they so choose. A couple more had to do with funding and requiring complete street standards to be included in projects that receive certain types of funding. And when I first saw this, my first reaction, I'll confess this, I've got over it though, was how come they didn't talk to us first? And then I thought so I was, but I got over that when I realized that the Complete Streets Advisory Council has existed since 2012. Okay, 2010, 12 years. Okay, and Tom Polk really gets a lot of credit for starting it and for pushing it forward and for using it as an education piece. And the people on the Common Council at the time had no clue about complete streets. or sidewalks or bicycles, and they could have cared less. And what I took to make myself feel better about this bill was they didn't need to ask us. In essence, they approved this bill, and this bill is all complete street stuff. And, some of it is, some of it it'll be interesting to see how they implement some of it, but the concept is all complete street stuff. And they just knew that it was the right thing for them to do. We did not have to lobby them. We did not have to sell the program to them. The Common Council approved it, which is interesting, what it bleeds into the next thing where we talk about our input and where we are. Maybe this year, I'm thinking if we have 3 potential new members, and apparently the Common Council is no longer our opponent. When I remember being on the council with Tom Polk and having a long and complicated conversation with the Director of Public Works at the time about putting in sharrows. And he was horrified by that idea. And they ended up compromising and putting in sharrows down by the beach, if you remember, where there's, kind of on a side road by the beach. And Tom Polk had to go down and hold his hand while he did it. And now when I ride my bike up to the post office from where I am, there's sharrows. I mean, there's a bike route, there's sharrows. It's not a big deal. It's, we have made significant progress in that, the city engineer, the superintendent of public works get it. The Common Council gets it. So that's kind of an interesting place for us to be. So the next question for us as the Complete Streets Advisory Council is, where should we be next? What do we need? How do we continue to move this whole idea forward, and how do we support the movement of it forward? And, our role is changing from an advocate that has to fight for all this stuff to, that is significantly lessened. And I think we probably need to sit down as a group and talk about, okay, what do we, do a strategic check, if you will, about where are we going? What should we be doing? Where should we focus our resources? Now, it hasn't all been wonderful stuff. I laid a list of stuff that we've done. We have members on the Foxhall Project, Citizen Advisory, the Bike Fed Plan, the Broadway Project Planning really was a huge part. That's how I got involved in Complete Streets. I was working for the consultant at the time that did the planning for that. The DRI, John mentioned the improvements that are coming out of the DRI. There are Complete Streets improvements deeply embedded, and we've been involved in that. The education effort for traffic safety was a bit of a frustrating adventure over the last year, but at the end of the day, they approved it. They weren't all that excited about it when we suggested it, and did not and voted it down once, if you remember. So there's been a bunch of successes. We're the master plan, the zoning rezoning thing. We're involved, and some of us are on that committee, on that Citizens Advisory Committee. And we've influenced city projects. John's streetlight project was an exciting thing that has made significant progress. I'm not sure where we are right now, but so my thought is, and I want to know what others think. My thought is maybe it's time to sit down and talk about how can we continue this success and be effective, and where should we be looking at this point. The sidewalk standards was a huge issue, that we got done. We didn't get the improvement district done, but the standard update, if you remember the standards that we updated had things like you can't tie your mule on the sidewalk, and these were, so we've made progress there. And skateboards were banned, if you remember, in the old standard. No skateboards. So there's a new set of standards in there. They appear to be working. The city has adopted NACTO as their go-to standard for highway work, which was a new thing. So what do you think? Is it time for a reset? Is it time for a check? And I'll leave it at that, see what other people think.
I don't want to give my opinion, but I just want to chime in one quick thing. And that is, as part of the bike ped master plan, we have gone into contract with a consultant to do a complete streets training. I didn't mention that. And that might inform part of what you're talking about. So coming up soon will be another complete streets training. It sort of feels like there's been waves of work, and I think this might help future work.
Training who?
Yeah. Training.
So it's specifically for the Common Council in preparation for the bike ped master plan, but it'll be open to everyone. It'll be a public meeting, complete streets training.
And we should, so when that is set, we should be participants in that in some level.
Yeah, and I would hope we could get our Kingston Planning Board members in particular, and maybe even some members of Department of Public Works participating in that as well.
It's actually a nice segue into comment I wanted to make, because I had suggested to Bob that we add this agenda item as far as, where do we go next? How can we get a more authoritative voice here? And I was thinking we need more input on not just transportation projects as a niche, but projects in general that have an impact on transportation. And I'll use the Kingstonian as an example. When they came in with the initial plans, they had the walkway over to the plaza, blah, blah, blah. But there was nothing there to accommodate cyclists. And I noticed on the last iteration of the plans, they now have troughs on the stairs so that cyclists can move bikes up and down the staircase. But that was, probably just my nagging voice out there, questioning why there was this complete disregard for complete street standards in this project. Is by closing down Fair, the changes proposed for Clinton, the changes proposed for Schwenk, kind of isolated Kingston Plaza for cyclists coming from the uptown area. And, I think we need a more formal voice when projects come up. I think the Tree Commission's got a more formal voice than we have. And, I don't know how to make that happen, but except maybe by just inserting ourselves into it, but maybe there is a formal way to, have us at least look at projects that are coming, up to the planning board, up to, the city and other forums. We've got a lot of experienced eyes here that could offer good input.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And I think we should do a strategic exam. I think it's very possible the planning board could refer stuff to us, but I think I'd like to do a formal, let's take a look at what we're doing. And as a result, maybe things like that we can identify things like that to move forward with.
If I may, Bob, I think you're right on point in that we definitely seem to be at an inflection point in the city of Kingston. We're on the verge of completing the bike ped master plan, which is a major undertaking that's been actually several years in the making. And we have a new bipartisan infrastructure law that was recently passed, the implications of which we really still are trying to figure out in terms of dollars in Kingston and in Ulster County. But we also have at the Federal Highway Administration a transportation secretary who has fully embraced the safe systems approach to transportation, which is a major shift in federal policy as well. So it now would seem like a good time to start taking a step back and examining how we, adjust our framework, so to speak. But I also would say there's still some pretty glaring gaps I think we're all aware of that we identified many years ago in our local system that, we have to wait and see how the recommendations of the bike ped master plan come out. I think that's really going to inform a lot of our next major projects and focus areas. But I think you're definitely right that now is a good time because, especially with the completion of Broadway,
Mhm.
I mean, that was such a major endeavor and a major step forward, but we're still assessing. It's not even done. I think we constantly got to remind everyone that the streets, the signals aren't even fully coordinated yet. I think we need to also wait for that to be completed so we can actually take a full assessment as to, how well is it really working and how can we improve going forward. So
And
I'm all for doing a revisioning and reassessment of our focus areas.
good. Thank you.
Another point that I neglected to make was that I was concerned about the planning board historically just throwing away things like the need for sidewalks. And, I'm on a street where they did that with 3 properties in a row, and it's a street that's used by a lot of school children. So it's, that's the kind of stuff that I think we really need to be able to weigh in on and say, no, you can't throw the sidewalks away. This is important. And I don't know if the bike ped master plan, or I guess it's supposed to be ped bike master plan, will address that adequately, that the planning board knows that they can't throw the sidewalks away just because somebody objects to putting them in.
The Route 32 sidewalks were a major step forward that we were very lucky to get implemented in such a quick fashion for the amount of money we paid as taxpayers. But there are other examples. We can just list them off, and I agree. We got to keep focusing on filling these gaps. So,
Elizabeth, you had your hand up.
Yes, and sorry for my not being able to be there at the beginning. I do want to hear about the sidewalk district, but I'll talk to somebody afterwards. So my question about this is, how is, in stepping back and looking, should we also look forward to the Dover and Cole plan that might be supposed to come several months ago? I don't know what the status is now. In terms of the bike ped master plan, has that been, do they know about it? Has there been any interaction with Dover and Cole and the form code and all of that? Did y'all hear me, or is did I lose you?
You're a little pixelated. I think we got it. By
Can
Dover and
anybody hear
Cole.
me? I'm sorry.
Oh, are you still going? I think you're talking about the rezoning. Is that true, EJ? Or is it
Emily,
EJ?
can you hear me? I'm not hearing anybody.
One suggestion is to
There,
turn off
okay.
your camera if you have a slow connection. We might be able to hear you better.
No, I'm done. Yeah. Elizabeth, I just use EJ because I deal with a lot of clients who men, and they sometimes react to.
Thank you for that. I was going to ask you, Elizabeth.
I'm actually outside on wireless, so it might be. So there, is that a little better? Is that better?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Emily can probably address your
Yeah.
concern. Go ahead, Emily.
I'd have to go upstairs. I could hear everybody until now. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Elizabeth, I think you're talking about the rezoning. Is that accurate with Dover Cole? I think that's the right consultant for the right project. So that's we've been calling that Kingston Forward for anyone else who's following at home. You can find out more about that on the Engage Kingston website. Yes, bike ped master plan consultants and rezoning consultants have been talking. I don't believe that there's a draft of the rezoning that's been public yet. There's a little bit of internal previews, and some city staff got to see a preview of the streetscape aspect of the rezoning. And I have shared that with the bike ped master plan consultants. So there is I don't want to say collaboration. There was an awareness of the thoughts behind both projects going back and forth.
Okay, because my feeling is that I didn't have a chance to do my intro. been here a year. I moved in a year ago, March 15th, and I was very heavily involved in the Complete Street Franklin project. I can tell you more about that another time if you're interested. Anyway, it seems like there's a lot of people not talking to each other in the government and these committees. I've attended a lot of meetings for last fall and this winter as just an observer. And there's a lot of meetings where people are saying something and I go to another meeting and they don't have a clue what this other committee is talking about. So that's the only reason I brought it up, because it sounds like, from what I've seen, I'm not blaming anybody. There's a lot of stuff going on, but it seems like there's some not recognition of these big master plans like Dover and Kolb, and then there's the bike plan. I mean, it would make sense that they kind of all speak to each other and are aware and incorporate things together. That's the only reason I brought that up.
So the city staff our new housing director, Bartek, and I are working closely together. So I can offer that.
And some of the, like Elizabeth, I'm on both citizens advisory committees. And that's one of our early concerns. One of my early concerns was how are these things going to intermesh with each other, and how are they not going to contradict each other? And it's important that they all be together. So I expect that by the time the form-based zoning is done and the master plan is done, there will not be conflict, and they are sharing information, and that's important.
That's great to hear.
In an ideal world, it would have been best to do the master plan and then the zoning, but it's getting it done is more important than waiting for an ideal world, in my view.
There's no ideal world. So getting it done, how you can get it done is always the best way. You're right.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to propose. I'm going to propose.
Helen's got her hand up.
Oh, Helen, okay.
Sorry. Hi, I just have a couple of questions. Thank you. So specifically to the Kingston Forward thing, the CAC wanted me to ask you, have you had any direct input as Complete Streets into that process, or are you just saying?
I sit on the Citizens Advisory Committee, so I've been involved in all that elements of the
but as a Complete Streets committee, you haven't weighed in.
Well, they haven't. Once they're able to share stuff with us, it will certainly send it around to the council for input. I don't know if anybody showed up they had a bunch of charrettes, and I don't know if anybody on the Complete Streets Advisory Council went to, or which charrettes people went to, if they did, as one piece of this. And we've discussed it here. Once we get some drafts, we'll certainly circulate it and discuss it here. I expect we'll have. I don't know if we'll have. I expect we'll have comments. We'll see what they produce. It might be perfect.
That would be nice.
Yes.
Just one other question. We were talking last night at the CIC about these RAISE grants, and I wondered if Complete Streets had applied for any of those, and if so, what? And
we've not applied for any grants. I don't know if Emily, do you know anything about that? Or
my understanding is that the city has applied for a RAISE grant, especially for the Kingston Point Rail Trail Phase 2. And I think maybe it incorporates a bunch of stuff along the waterfront. I'm not the project manager of that, but I know at least there's at least a package. I see Brian shaking his head. Maybe Brian, you don't even know more than I do, but I think it's almost like a package of projects, including the Kingston Point Rail Trail Phase 2, which is that gap between the Kingston Housing Authority and the waterfront. And then it might include bulkhead and some other things. Brian, do you know?
Yeah, that's right. The RAISE grant is a discretionary federal transportation grant, and there are a lot of different federal discretionary transportation grants that the city's applied for in the past, including Transportation Alternatives Program. And there will be several new programs that all come under the bipartisan infrastructure law that I think will apply to the city as well, but they haven't even written the regulations governing how those funds will be distributed at this point for the new programs. But city, exactly what Emily said, city did submit for RAISE, and it did have Complete Streets components in it. RAISE is a difficult, highly competitive federal source of funds.
Sure, understood. Thank you for the update. I appreciate it.
Okay, any other comments? So what I'm going to propose is that we, and I've got to figure out the timing on this, is that this year, 2022, we do a strategic update and check with where we are as a council and what we should be doing and how we can get that done. And if things loosen up, we might want to spend some time, a couple, 3 hours together to do that. Even though, you know, we're all still, it's not over yet. COVID is not over yet. But I think I'll put some thoughts together and circulate them to everyone, and see if we can gather together to do a strategic update. It's time for 12 years. It's time for an update.
I think that's an excellent idea, because it gives us the opportunity to move things in a more strategic manner, and also to look at things that are coming. Technology has changed so much in your 12-year, and I certainly wasn't in Kingston when this started. But we need to be apprised of where things are headed and how we can be ahead of the curve as opposed to reacting to everything. So I'm for you doing that.
Okay, good. So we've come a long way from being a bunch of bike nuts that were there in 10, trying to change the world.
Yeah, now I even think people walk.
I know, who'd have thought?
I'm stunned at how many people I see walking now compared to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Tremendous difference.
Yeah, Kingston has changed. It's for the better. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Any other last comments or questions or thoughts?
I was actually hoping that Barbara was here. I was curious about the new handicap parking spot that was installed on Fairview Avenue. Maybe John's familiar with that. That one side of Fairview Avenue, across from the apartment complex, there's it's no parking on that whole side, and now there's a single handicap parking spot on the no parking side of the street, which just baffles me, because that's a kind of a pinch point for traffic. That's why there was no parking on that side to begin with. And I didn't understand how that could have occurred. I could see it, a handicapped spot on the parking side of the street, reserved, but to stick it on the no parking side, it looks to me like it's just a recipe for a collision. And I don't know how that played out. I don't know if anybody's got any, words of wisdom there, but I thought that was not a good decision. The other thing I was concerned about is there's a business sign at the corner of Quarry and Hurley Avenue that blocks motorists' vision to the west. And it was bad enough when they just had the sign there, but they put in ornamental grass that will grow up almost out to the sidewalk when it's mature in the summer, as the summer progresses here. And that blocks it even further. And I don't understand how that sign could be there, given that there's supposed to be a setback from the intersections. And that's another thing that puzzles me.
It might be, so the sign thing might be a thing for the highway superintendent. One of the successes, so we might want to write him a note, would be what, or drop him an email about what's the deal with that. One of the successes, and it's mixed, but it's been a pretty good success, I think. And John will tell me if I'm lying or not, the city engineer. We changed the process. We got them to change the process whereby they do traffic regulations by common council resolution alone. And my understanding is, they now amazingly talk to the city engineer before they decide to put up a stop sign or some other traffic control device. which was the case used to be that the common councils got together and decided that they should have a traffic control device someplace because they thought it was a good idea.
Or a
And-
handicap parking spot.
Right. Well, I was horrified by the idea that they didn't they didn't have an engineer look at it to determine if in fact it was a good idea. And I think they've changed that. My understanding is that they've changed that, and that they drag you into those conversations, which is a huge improvement, I believe. But if we have a concern like this, like the sign or like saying, I think a note to the Superintendent of Public Works, Ed Norman, about, what's the deal here? I found him to be responsive. So I think it's worth a note. So if you want to draft something, John, because you know the specifics more than I do, we can send that over to him.
Okay.
Good. Okay, anything else? Announcements, communications, events, updates.
Some bike activities. Tom Polk is doing about monthly bike repairs. You can see it on social media or the YMCA's website for the bike repairs. Bike Friendly Kingston is doing slow rides the first Thursday of the month. You can find that on the Bike Friendly Kingston website and social media, Instagram and Facebook. I think that's all I got for that.
Utility Bikes put on his website that if you're not fast enough for him, you should go with you, Emily. They do a weekly ride as well.
And Kristen is reminding me also that this Saturday is the Earth Fair for the city of Kingston is putting on, and I'm leading a slow ride at 2 p.m. at a Forsyth Park. And Utility Bikes is right. When I lead, I'll be leading the slow rides this summer for July and August. I go quite slow. It's really meant for all users. Sometimes when other people lead the slow rides, they're a little faster. But yes, if you want to go fast, please go with Utility.
Right. That's right. If you want to go fast, go see Brian. If you want to go slow, Emily's your guy. Okay. Anything else? Right, yeah.
Yeah, one other thing. I meant to bring this up earlier and I forgot. We had talked about having the city authorize the use of the parks and other city-owned properties for the e-bikes,
Right.
the trails and the parks and so forth.
Yep.
Did anything like that ever make its way through to the Common Council?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead,
What
Emily.
would be our
might
mechanism
know.
now?
I believe we have draft legislation. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, I feel like we sent it to the mayor and maybe it got lost. We could resend it if you'd like.
We did send it to the mayor, and it was based on the legislation that was suggested by the state for locals. And I think just kind of, so we can resend it next month. We can revitalize it and send it over there and say, what do you think about that? And it really was, it in essence opens up parks, I think. I have to read it again. It's been a while.
Well, the city-owned trails was
Right.
a big concern because of the Empire State Trail.
Yeah.
And, I've mentioned it before, but I do a lot of maintenance on the Walkill Valley Rail Trail. And I see groups of tourists come through, sometimes as many as 10 at a time. And some of these folks are riding e-bikes. And right now, they legally can't ride on the Kingston Point Trail, which is part of the Empire State Trail, because the city hasn't authorized their use.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a ridiculous situation that needs to be remedied.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll revisit that and send it, and maybe circulate it out and send it over, because you're right, it's got to be fixed, because they're going to do it, and we should be cognizant of that, and so should everybody else.
Would that have been reviewed by Corporation Council before it went back to the mayor? I'm just.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
So if there was a change in Corp Council, that could be hung up at. It sounds to me like there's a legal issue that has not been totally resolved there, which could be they just haven't reviewed it.
He just didn't get to it before he left. Yeah, that's probably.
yeah, it could be. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
Because basically, if I understand this correctly, if there's no prohibition, then they're kind of okay, you know, because there's nothing that tells them no.
Well, state law tells them no.
Well, state law
That's
said,
the problem.
yeah, state law said yes to no to rentals, yes to e-bikes, no to trails, right? And we got to fix the trails part, unless the city says yes.
Unless the city says yes.
Are the neighboring jurisdictions allowing the e-bikes on their public trails?
I don't know. I don't know if they have any.
Just curious.
Well, the O&W Rail Trail is, basically owned by the municipalities between here and Ellenville. And this is actually a topic that I wanted to bring up again with the O&W Municipal Coalition. I represent the city on that because I don't think any of those municipalities have taken action to date either.
Yeah.
And the village of New Paltz, I think that they actually own part of the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail property, but it's being managed by the Wallkill Valley Land Trust. So I'm not sure how that particular segment may or may not be impacted by this. But that's something that they need to talk to the Wallkill Valley Land Trust.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be held up in Corp Council. It also sounds to me that it could be a kind of a critical mass thing where they need to make sure that everybody's in alignment before they say yes. So, but we could definitely resend it if we want to give them permission within the city of Kingston.
Yeah, I've raised this issue with the Ulster County Trails Advisory Council. So it has been discussed. Whether action's been taken is another issue.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see if we can find it somewhere in the Corp Council's office.
Right.
Okay. Last step, Paul and Elizabeth. So you've been through one of our torturous meetings. If you want to rethink your application, this could be your opportunity. Let us know. If not, we'll march on with a recommendation to the mayor.
I am dying to be a part of your committee. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm all for it as well. Sounds like you guys are doing great work.
And Kristen, of course, we're going to recommend because we all love Kristen.
Yes, we do.
A question about order. So I also am in liaison for another commission, Live Well Kingston. That commission, we go into executive session and then the commissioners vote to recommend to the mayor. Would you like to do that kind of a process here, or?
Sure, why not? We should be consistent in process. So we'll go into executive session. We'll throw Elizabeth and Paul off the phone, and I guess we have to throw Helen and Kristen off as well. No, Kristen not. Helen, yes. Sorry, Helen, you're gone. And John, I guess. Have a good week, John.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop